My name doesn't matter anymore. Not really. I was 52 years old the night I died, alone, angry, bitter, and guilty of more than anyone knew. I wasn't caught, I wasn't tried, but I had blood on my hands, literally. 3 people. One of them was a woman who trusted me. Another was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. The last one, I don't even remember his face. That's how far gone I was. I went to bed that night like I had every night before, convinced the past didn't matter, convinced hell wasn't real, convinced that death would just be sleep with no alarm clock. I was wrong. I died in my sleep. Heart attack. No final breath. Just blackness. But I didn't wake up to peace. I woke up to heat. Blistering, crawling, suffocating heat. And a silence that wasn't empty, but thick, like it was watching me. I tried to scream, but my voice came out like gravel. My legs wouldn't move right. Everything felt heavy. And then I heard it. A laugh. Not one of joy, but of recognition. Someone said my name, slowly, like they were savoring it. I turned, and there he was. Not a demon, not fire, but Adolf Hitler. And he smiled, because I was exactly where I belonged. He didn't look like the pictures, not exactly. His hair was a mess. His face was sunken, gray, and cracked like old leather left in fire. But I still knew who he was. Everyone knows that face. The mustache, the stare. But it was his eyes that froze me. They weren't just evil. They were empty, like whatever was human in him had long since rotted away. Still, when he looked at me, it was as if he already knew everything I had ever done. He didn't ask. He didn't need to. He smiled. "You belong here," he said, in a voice that wasn't loud, but carried through the air like poison. "You earned your place." I couldn't move, couldn't speak. He walked toward me, slowly. People like us, we always think we're smarter than the rest, that we'll get away with it. But hell, he gestured around at the darkness, hell never forgets. The place we were in, it wasn't fire and flames like I had imagined. It was worse. It looked like the world, but dead, colorless, silent. No wind, no sky, just a faint red haze hanging in the air, and a stench I can't describe, like burning souls mixed with regret. I tried to step back, but the ground felt like it was pulling me down. I looked at him and finally asked, "Are you in charge here?" He laughed, hard, cruel, bitter. "No one's in charge here," he said. "We're all prisoners, even me. But I get to greet the new ones sometimes, especially the ones like you." I didn't ask how he knew. I didn't have to, because in that moment, I remembered everything I'd done, and I knew this wasn't punishment, this was justice. I always thought hell would be loud, screams, flames, chaos. But that's not what I found. What I found was worse. Hell whispers. It's quiet here, too quiet. So quiet you start hearing things, not voices from others, your own, your regrets, your excuses, your lies, the things you buried deep inside that no one ever knew. They don't stay buried here. They echo. Hitler led me through what looked like a street, if you could even call it that. Cracked pavement, broken buildings, no light, just this pulsing red gloom that never fades or brightens. He didn't speak for a while, and I didn't ask questions. My body was moving, but it wasn't me who decided. It felt like I was being dragged forward by guilt alone. We passed others, things that looked like people, but twisted, hollow. Some were staring at invisible things. Others were hitting their own heads, repeating words over and over. And then I realized they weren't being tortured, they were reliving. One man kept screaming the same woman's name, over and over. I saw a teen curled in a corner with his hands over his ears, whispering about a secret he should have told. I couldn't look away. Their pain wasn't from fire, it was from memory. That's when Hitler turned to me and said, "There is no fire worse than the truth." He stopped in front of a shattered mirror hanging on a crumbling wall. "Go on," he said. "Look." I didn't want to, but my body moved anyway. And what I saw in that mirror, it wasn't just my reflection. It was every face I had ever hurt. I stood in front of that shattered mirror, and I wish I could tell you I saw myself as I used to be, but I didn't. What I saw was them, the faces of the people I killed. Her first, Angela, the woman who trusted me, the woman who begged. Her face wasn't bloody or broken. It was disappointed. That was worse. Her eyes locked onto mine and didn't blink. She didn't scream. She just looked like she had one question written across her face. Why? Then the man I shot in the alley, the one I told myself didn't matter, because he probably would have robbed someone someday. I saw his eyes too. He was young, too young. I never knew his name. I never cared. But the mirror knew. It showed me everything. His birthday, his mother, the way he used to sing to his little sister. The last one came next, the one I killed out of rage without even planning it. I used to tell myself it was an accident, that I lost control. But the mirror didn't lie. It showed the moment in slow motion, the clenched jaw, the choice. I didn't lose control. I gave in to it. My knees buckled. I tried to look away, but I couldn't. That's the curse of this place. You see it all, and you can't forget. I collapsed to the ground, sobbing for the first time in decades. But no tears came, just dry, raw pain that had nowhere to go. Hitler stood over me, grinning. "Don't bother begging," he said. "No one hears you here." Then he knelt down beside me. "You thought you were a monster," he whispered, "but you were just efficient." I tried to cover my ears, but the words were already inside me, and I knew. I was becoming exactly like him. There's no lying down here, not to others, not to God, and worst of all, not to yourself. In life, I was good at lying. I lied to the cops, lied to my mother, lied to myself in the mirror every morning, told myself it wasn't murder, it was justice, survival, an accident. But here, every excuse I ever made was gone, peeled off like old skin. All that remained was the naked truth, ugly, undeniable, and permanent. The pain in hell isn't fire, it's clarity. You finally see what you are. Hitler walked ahead, his steps never echoing, his hands behind his back like he still thought he was some kind of general. But he wasn't leading an army anymore, just a parade of the damned. I followed him deeper into the city, where the air got thicker, hotter. Not like fire, like guilt. It clung to you. You breathed it in until you were choking on your own past. We stopped in front of a door made of bones. Human bones. He turned to me and said, "You're still in the early stages. The worst is yet to come." I looked at the bones, some small, some crushed, some still bearing the rusted metal of shackles. "What's behind the door?" I asked. He smiled like a man offering candy to a child. "Your future," he said, and then he opened it. What I saw made me want to scream, because I realized something terrifying. Hell was custom-made. It had rooms, and one of them had been waiting just for me. The moment that door opened, something inside me buckled. It wasn't the heat or the smell, it was the recognition. That room knew me, like it had been shaped from the filth of my soul. It didn't welcome me. It claimed me. I stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind me without a sound. The room was small, but infinite. The walls were made of reflections, like 1,000 broken televisions playing the same loop. But the loop wasn't a show. It was my life. Every lie, every moment I turned away, every choice I made that led me here. I saw myself, younger, cleaning blood off a knife in the back of a gas station. I saw myself laughing at a man begging for his life. I saw my own eyes, dead long before my heart ever stopped beating. And all around me, those reflections whispered, "This is who you are." I tried to look away, but in this place, looking away isn't allowed. The truth follows you. It sits in your mouth like rot. You can't spit it out, and you can't swallow it. Then the mirror shifted. It stopped showing what I had done. It started showing what could have been. The people I killed, they were alive, in the mirror, laughing, loving, growing old. One of them became a nurse. The other had 2 daughters. The last one? He became a youth counselor, helping kids stay out of trouble. I saw everything I took from the world. And that's when the room did something worse than punish me. It grieved. It mourned what I could have been, who I was meant to be. A husband, a father, a man with a chance. And I threw it all away. That was the moment I realized, hell isn't where God sends you. It's where you send yourself, and then understand why. I don't know how long I stayed in that room. Time doesn't work the same in hell. There are no clocks, no sunrises, just pain and memory stretching into forever. Eventually the door opened again, and he was there. Hitler. Same twisted face, same hollow eyes, but this time he looked different. Not kinder, never that, but smaller, less like a monster, more like a mirror. He waved me out without a word, and I followed him through a hall that pulsed like a throat. He led me to a broken bench near what looked like a burned-out cathedral. I sat, not because I wanted to, but because hell demands you listen when it speaks. Then he started talking. "I was 12 when I stopped believing in love," he said. 16 when I started believing in power. By the time I was 20, I had already decided that people were tools. I didn't speak. I couldn't. He looked straight ahead, like he was staring into memories he couldn't erase. "They think this place is full of screaming," he said, "but it's really full of knowing. Down here, you know every soul you destroyed. You feel every mother's scream, every child's fear, over and over, forever." I asked quietly, "Do you regret it?" He turned to me. "Regret is for the living. Down here, there's only recognition. You don't feel sorry, you feel truth. And it's a blade that never stops cutting." He paused, then added something that chilled me more than anything yet. "I used to think I was the worst man to ever live, but down here, I've met worse." He looked at me and didn't blink, and that's when I realized he wasn't talking about history. He was talking about me. The words hit harder than the flames ever could. Worse than Hitler. I wanted to scream at him, to fight it. "You murdered millions," I thought. "You started a war. You burned the world. But down here, you can't lie, not even in your thoughts. Hell is wired directly into your conscience." And I knew what he meant, because what I did with no delusion of politics, no speeches, no cause. I didn't believe in anything. I killed because I could. I ended lives not to change history, but to feel powerful in my own emptiness. I wasn't trying to lead, I was just trying to feed the black hole inside me. And Hitler, of all people, saw that. He leaned closer and said, "There are those who cause destruction from madness, and those who do it from choice. You chose it, fully, repeatedly, without regret. I lowered my head, but it didn't matter. There's no hiding in hell. My guilt followed me like a second skin. People above think this place is full of monsters, he went on. They're wrong. It's full of men who thought they were gods. Then he looked at me and asked the question that still echoes through my soul. Did you ever think about who you could have saved instead of who you destroyed? I hadn't, not once. That's when I heard something, distant, soft, laughter, children's laughter. I turned, and in the flickering haze of hell, I saw 3 figures, faint, like smoke, watching me from across the ruins. The 3 lives I took. They weren't suffering. They weren't accusing me. They were grieving me, because I was the one who ended up here, not them. And that was a punishment deeper than fire. It would have been easier if they had hated me. If they had screamed, cursed, demanded justice, I could have handled that. I've seen rage before. I understood rage. But what I saw in their eyes across that smoky plain wasn't rage. It was pity, and that shattered me. The woman I strangled, Angela, stood closest. Her image flickered in and out like a candle fighting against wind. But her eyes, they never wavered. She wasn't angry. She looked at me like a mother might look at a lost child. I fell to my knees again, but the ground felt like glass. Every movement cut deeper. My guilt had shape now. It bled. I whispered something, though I don't know what. Maybe, I'm sorry. Maybe, why. It didn't matter. No sound ever leaves this place that isn't echoed back in judgment. Hitler stood beside me, watching it all with something close to satisfaction. They've moved on, he said. But you're stuck. You chose this. You wore death like a second skin, and now it wears you. Then, as if pulled by some invisible thread, the 3 souls turned and began to fade into the ash, not walking away in hatred, but retreating in grief. And the silence they left behind was louder than any scream. I asked the only question left in me. Is there no hope here? Hitler laughed, not with joy, with certainty. Number hope doesn't belong here. That door closed the moment you refused it for the last time. I wanted to argue, but the terrifying part? I couldn't remember the last time I was offered hope, because I had ignored it so often. It finally stopped knocking. Hitler walked away again, fading into the haze, leaving me alone in that crumbling, bleeding place. I wasn't bound in chains. There were no demons dragging me by the throat. But I had never felt more trapped, because now I realized something no one tells you about hell. You don't have to die to arrive here. I had started building it around myself long before my heart stopped beating. Every time I ignored that voice inside telling me to stop, every time I laughed after what I'd done, every time I justified murder as survival, I was carving the walls of this place brick by brick, choice by choice. There was no courtroom, no angel reading off my sins, just me and the undeniable truth. I chose this. I remembered a moment from years ago. A gas station bathroom, filthy mirror, blood under my nails. I had looked at myself and said, "You're too far gone. This is who you are now." That was the day I died, not when my heart gave out, not when my victims fell, but when I buried the last piece of my conscience under the weight of my own pride. And here, in this place of sorrow and knowing, that moment played on repeat. Not to torture me, but to show me how many times I could have turned back. I don't know what's worse, the punishment, or the truth that it could have been different. I could have confessed, I could have repented, I could have begged for grace when I still had breath. But I didn't. And now I understand what eternal separation means. It's not fire, it's finality. I remember once, long ago, hearing someone say, "There's always hope." I clung to that lie for years, even as I killed, even as I numbed myself with alcohol, violence, silence. I always assumed that if I really wanted to, I could fix it later, that God would always be listening, that a last-second prayer would save me, just like in the movies. But down here, there are no more prayers, not because they aren't allowed, because they can't rise. This place, this hell, it is sealed, like a coffin around the soul. No sound escapes it, no light touches it. If you scream, the sound just curls around you like smoke. If you whisper for mercy, the silence only grows heavier. I tried to pray. I opened my mouth, I closed my eyes. I said the words I used to hear in Sunday school, but there was no voice inside, no sincerity, no faith, just performance. And hell does not respond to performances. Only heaven does. And heaven was far from here. I asked Hitler, yes, him, if he ever tried to cry out to God. He smiled in that broken, lopsided way of his and said, "Of course, at first, but when you've trained your heart to hate long enough, you forget how to mean anything else." He looked off into the red distance. And then, you stop wanting forgiveness. You stop even believing it exists. That's when it hit me. Hell doesn't start with fire. It starts with forgetting how to love. And once you've murdered love itself, there's no language left for heaven to hear. There are screams here. You hear them, endless cries from every corner of this pit. But eventually, your mind adjusts to them like background noise. The real horror isn't the screaming, it's the silence between them. Because in those silences, you remember what you lost. Not just your life, not just your soul. You remember joy, laughter, a child's hug, rain, music, even the taste of food. The smallest human pleasures are forbidden here, not by guards, but by memory. It teases you with what once was, and then crushes you with the knowledge that it is gone forever. One silence hit me harder than the rest. I was walking, if you can call it that, through what looked like an abandoned house, but it wasn't a building. It was my past. The walls were covered in pictures, photos of what could have been. Me with a family, me helping someone, me being someone. But none of it was real, just echoes. Echoes of a life I could have lived if I hadn't let hate and ego lead me. I stood in one room, staring at a picture of myself as a child, pure, unbroken. And I collapsed. I didn't sob, I couldn't. Hell burns the tears out of you. But I ached. Then I felt someone near. Hitler. Again. He stood at the doorway, not smiling this time, just watching. "I see it starting," he said. "What?" I asked. He leaned in. "Regret that never dies." Then he walked away, and I was left with silence again. Not peace, but the absence of everything that ever mattered. That night, if you can even call anything here night, I began hearing something new. Not screams, not whispers, but echoes. They came from deep within me, like a memory rising through stone. Voices, moments, little interruptions from my life I had buried, scoffed at, ignored. A grandmother praying, a street preacher I once mocked, a Bible verse someone left tucked in a diner napkin, a woman I dated who once looked me in the eye and said, "You're not too far gone." They were invitations, every one of them, invitations to turn back, to repent, to change course. I had laughed in their faces. I had said things like, "God's for the weak," and "I'll worry about hell when I get there." Well, I was here. And now all I could hear was what I had refused to hear when it still mattered. The echoes didn't accuse me. They didn't say, "Look what you did." They said, "You didn't have to. You didn't have to end up here. You didn't have to become this." I covered my ears, but it didn't help. In hell, your soul is your speaker, and guilt is the volume. I screamed into the dark, hoping to drown them out, hoping to find someone to blame. But the truth never leaves you alone down here, because the truth is you. I started punching the walls. My fists bled, but the pain didn't distract me. Nothing does, not for long. And somewhere in the distance I heard Hitler laughing again. Not because it was funny, but because he understood. The worst torment isn't fire. It's remembering all the exits you ignored and realizing no more are coming. I don't know how I found it, if "found" is even the right word in a place like this. Nothing is discovered here, only revealed. I was wandering, if you can call it that, dragged by regret through the ruins of my past, when I came across a door. Unlike the rest of hell, which is carved from rot and ruin, this door was different. It was simple, wooden, gentle. It didn't glow, it didn't scream, but I knew instantly what it was. It was the last door I never walked through. On the other side, I could feel it. Light, peace, warmth, the presence. His presence. I remembered this door. It had appeared in my real life more than once. That moment in the gas station bathroom. The night I sat with a loaded gun, not sure if I was about to take my own life. The time a stranger prayed for me outside a courthouse. The Bible left open at the hotel room. I had seen this door, but I never touched it. I had mocked it, walked past it, kicked it closed, and now here it stood, sealed. I reached for the handle. My hand passed through it like smoke. Nothing responded. No voice, no heat, no second chance. The angel who had once guarded it, gone. Only silence remained. I fell to my knees and whispered, "Please." But this place doesn't respond to please, because this door, this sacred once open door, was not locked from the outside. It was locked from within, by me. I heard footsteps behind me. I didn't have to look. It was Hitler. "All of us," he said, "stood at that door once. All of us thought we had more time." Then he smiled, stepped back into the shadows, and left me kneeling in front of the door I had sealed with my pride. And for the first time since I arrived, I realized the flames weren't coming. They were already inside me. I never thought those words would pass through my mind, not even after death, not after the screams, the torment, the memories, the regret. But here I am. And I know now, I belong here. Not because I was the worst, not because I killed, not even because I was like Hitler, or worse. I belong here because I refused mercy, again and again and again. The truth is, hell isn't for people who sinned. It's for people who refused to be forgiven. I had 100 chances to kneel, to weep, to whisper, "God, help me." But I laughed instead. I shrugged. I boasted. I thought I was untouchable. I thought eternity was a fairy tale, and if it wasn't, I figured I'd bluff my way past the gates. But there's no bluffing here. Only reality. Hell doesn't want you to be evil. It just wants you to be comfortable in your excuses until you die. And I was. Now I walk in circles, through ruins built from my own life. Every brick a choice, every wall a moment I mocked the truth. I hear the door behind me sometimes, quiet, unmoved, forever closed. No angel waits for me now. No light will split this sky. No name will be called. I will not be rescued, because I was warned, and I laughed. And now, there is only this, not punishment, but the perfect result of what I lived for. My will. And now, my will is all I have, forever.